Hello, everyone. On this episode, I'm going to explain existence and non existence using infinity. You know, in a previous episode, I talked about how existence and non existence are two sides of the same coin, and they exist simultaneously as one. Existence creates non existence, and non existence creates existence. And I tried to explain it, using the sentence or the phrase or the question. I think it's a question. It's a question that explains how non-existence creates existence. And that question is this: since non-existence didn't exist to begin with, right? How can it cease to exist? If God doesn't exist or didn't exist to begin with, how can God cease to exist? And since God can't cease to exist, what does that imply? It implies that God exists. That's how non-existence creates existence. If non-existence, didn't exist to begin with, it can never cease to exist. That's how this world works. Existence and non-existence are two sides of the same coin. They exist simultaneously as one. You can't separate them. The only difference between something that exists and something that doesn't exist is perspective. From our perspective, we exist. But from a different perspective, we don't. From the perspective of a human, right? Humans exist. From the perspective of atoms, humans don't exist. The atoms in your body exist, not you. You're not the one that exists. It's your atoms that exist. You aren't real. You are an illusion created by atoms. When you think, it's not you that's thinking. It's these atoms that are thinking. When you walk, it's not you that's walking. It's the atoms in your body that's walking. When you talk, it's not you that's talking. It's the atoms in your body that's talking. You don't talk because you don't exist. The things that exist are your atoms. You are an illusion created by your atoms. You never existed to begin with. From the perspective of atoms, you don't exist and you never did. From the perspective of humans, it's the equal and opposite. We are the ones that exist. We are the ones that think, not atoms. We are the ones that talk, not atoms. We are the ones that walk, not atoms. We are the ones that truly exist, not atoms. Many people do not even believe that atoms are real. Only, people in the scientific world and people who believe in the scientific world believe in atoms. Because most people cannot see an atom, they automatically assume that atoms aren't real. Atoms don't exist to many people. They aren't real. They aren't part of this world. They are imaginary things created by scientists to trick the world and deceive the world. That's the mindset of many people. Because they don't see atoms, they automatically assume they aren't real. And the truth is, scientists, from what I've researched, scientists actually don't have haven't actually taken a picture of an atom yet. As in, there's no, the atoms, the diagrams of atoms you see, on your science textbooks are not accurate because they don't have, there's no tool that can, fully take a picture of an atom. So atoms, a real image of an atom doesn't truly exist. So if the real image of an atom doesn't exist, are atoms truly real? Or are they myth? You see? Existence and non-existence are based off perspective. From our perspective, we exist. From the perspective of atoms, we don't exist. They do. We are too large for them to see us. Atoms are so tiny, and our bodies are so large. When an atom looks around and sees the world, an atom will never see us. It'll only see atoms. It'll only see molecules at its size. It'll only see chemicals, other atoms. These are the things that atoms can see. They can't see the large human body. And since they can't see us, we don't exist. They do. That's how existence and non-existence work. The things we believe don't exist only don't exist from our perspective. From their perspective, they are just as real as we are. From the perspective of an atom, it is just as real as we are. From the perspective of a human, we are just as real as atoms. Because we are atoms. And atoms are us. There's no difference between the two because we're made up of the same thing. Yet, we both don't exist from our point of view. That's how existence and non-existence work. It's all perspective. So let's go back to, infinity and finite. Finite and infinite, these two terms are two sides of the same coin. Another way to say finite and infinite is one and many. These two are equal and opposites, and they exist simultaneously as one. Just like a body. A human body is one, but it's also many. The human body is composed of many cells, many atoms, but it's still one human body. That's how infinity works as well. Infinity, the only reason why infinity can't end, right, is because infinity never started to begin with, right? And since infinity never started to begin with, how can infinity end? Just like I stated before, if existence never, if non-existence never existed to begin with, right? How can non-existence cease to exist? If infinity never started to begin with, how can infinity end? It just can't. That's why there's no end to infinity. Because infinity never started to begin with. So let me give you an example of why I say that infinity doesn't have a beginning. Right? So if you want to start counting to infinity, what number do you start from? You start from 0, right? So after you pass 0, what number, if you want to increase the number, what number do you increase it to? 1? So from 0 to 1, right? But you're wrong. You can't start from 1 if you want to count to infinity. Do you know why? There are many numbers between 0 and 1 that you're ignoring. Although these numbers are there, many people believe they don't exist. But the numbers are still there. Between 0 and 1, there's 0.1, there's 0.01, there's 0.001, there's 0.0001. There's infinite numbers between 0 and 1. An infinite number, there are infinite numbers between 0 and 1. Since there are infinite numbers between 0 and 1, where do you start counting? If you want to count to infinity, where do you put your first number? 0, 0.1? 0 doesn't count because 0 represents infinity anyways. Zero represents nothing, and nothing and infinity are, synonymous. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about zero. Zero represents nothing, so you can't count with zero. Zero doesn't count. So when you want to start counting, which number do you start with? You can't start with 1 because there are many numbers. You're ignoring many numbers between 0 and 1. You're ignoring the infinite numbers between 0 and 1. And since there are infinite numbers between 0 and 1, you can never truly start counting from 0 because you don't know where to start. Because there are infinite numbers between 0 and 1, you will never know when to start counting from 0. Because the moment you put a number down, you realize that that's not the real start, of infinity. There's no beginning to infinity. You don't know where to start. There's no mathematician that can start counting from infinity if you truly want to count from infinity or count to infinity, because there's no starting point. You can't start at 0.1 because 0.1 isn't the start of a number. 0.01, 0.infinity 1, 0.infinity 01, 0.infinity 001. There's truly no way you can start counting from infinity. That's why infinity has no beginning, because we can never start counting from infinity. We don't know where to put the first number. We don't really know where to start counting, to infinity. And that's the problem with infinity. Infinity never began to begin with. That's why it can never end. Existence never began to begin with. That's why it can never cease to exist. Non-existence never began to begin with. Non-existence never began to begin with. That's why it can't cease to exist. Infinity it doesn't have a beginning. That's why it'll never have an end. And that's how this world works. And how do you, since infinity doesn't have a beginning, right? How do you start counting? Well, like I stated before, infinity creates finite. Finite creates infinity. One creates many. Many creates one. All of infinity, right, is infinity, right? But all that infinity is still just one infinity. That's how you get one. If infinity goes on infinitely, right, it'll end up becoming one infinity. Just like your body. Your body has many cells. All these little cells inside your body, right? But instead of counting all these cells, you group them all into one. You. That's why you're one. You're many and one at the same time, just like infinity. Because they're infinite numbers. All those numbers come together to create one infinity. And within that one infinity are infinite infinities within it. There are infinite infinities within every infinity. Weird, right? But yep, it's a mathematical, phenomenon. You can search it yourself. There are many different infinities. There are many different sizes of infinities. But all these infinite numbers come together to form one infinity. And that one infinity creates all the numbers that we know. Because if you add one infinity to another infinity, that's 2. If you add 2 infinities to 2 infinities, that's 4. If you add 4 infinities to 4 infinities, that's 8. And it goes on from there. So, although the numbers are infinite, infinity itself is still 1. And that's a finite number. No matter how large our world is, it is still one world. That's how infinity works. We just group all infinity together as one world, and we give it a finite number. That's how infinity creates the finite. That's how finite creates infinite. Existence and non-existence are two sides of the same coin. Infinity and finite are two sides of the same coin. One and many are two sides of the same coin, and they always exist simultaneously as one. All possibilities exist. The things we think can never exist in this world may never be able to exist in this world, right? But it doesn't mean they can't exist. Why? Because this duality itself proves their existence. Because if they didn't exist to begin with, they can never cease to exist. If they can never cease to exist, it means they exist. That's how weird this world is. Non-existence always creates existence, and existence creates non-existence. In the Bible, Jesus says, through God all things are possible. And it's the truth. And when all things are possible, even the impossible becomes possible. And when all things are possible, right? That's when the impossible comes into existence. Only in a world where all things are possible will the impossible come into existence. Only then will things become impossible to do. Because in the end, the word impossible is only possible when things are possible. The word possible and impossible are two sides of the same coin. They create each other, and they exist simultaneously as one. This world is a world of duality, and all dualities exist simultaneously as one. So, do not let people deceive you that God is impossible, because the truth is, duality itself, the world itself proves that God's existence is 100%. 100%. Because the world appears separate, proves that the world is one. Just like your body. Your body is separate. It's filled with many different separate life forms called cells. And these cells are filled with many different organs within them. And these organs are filled with many different molecules. And these molecules are filled with many different atoms. Yet your body is one. You think as one. You behave as one. Why? Because one and many are two sides of the same coin, and they exist simultaneously as one. Although this world appears separate and random and chaotic, it is still one world, one intelligent world. Separation is an illusion, just like infinity is an illusion. Everything will always be one. And that one world is God. God created this world out of his own body. And, this world itself proves it. You live inside an intelligent world, just like the Bible states. We're inside the body of God. Because God is everything you know and will ever know. Although this world appears separate from from our point of view, it is one world. One. Although this world appears unintelligent from your point of view, this world is completely intelligent. Because Intelligence and non-intelligence and unintelligence are two sides of the same coin, and they exist simultaneously as one. Own perspective determines whether you're one or many. Perspective determines whether this world is intelligent or not, because it's both. Because the world is very, very intelligent, those who are not intelligent will never be able to understand it. The more illogical you are, the more the world will appear illogical from your point of view. The more unintelligent you are, the more the world will appear unintelligent to you. The more intelligent you are, the more the world will show its true colors, that it is very, very intelligent. You live inside an intelligent being. And that's why the Bible says all things are possible through God, because God is the intelligent world around you. And God can create every single thing that you have in your head, every single world that you have in that head of yours, all your imaginations, all come true through God. Although things appear impossible, it's only possible from one perspective. From another perspective, everything is possible. Do not allow people to deceive you into thinking things are impossible. They'll be impossible for them, but not you. And they'll only be impossible for them. There's nothing you can't do in this world. Do not give up on yourself, and do not give up on the world. This world is a world governed by God. So although things may not be physically possible right now, it does not mean things can't change in the future. It is very hard to create a phone from a rock. But here we are, cell phones. Everyone in this world has almost everyone has cell phones. These are impossibilities in the past. If you go a few thousand years in the past, right? If you travel back in time to a few thousand years, many people will tell you it's impossible to create a cell phone. They'll tell you it's impossible to travel to the moon. They'll tell you these things are impossible. It's impossible to get out of our planet. Because back then they believed that we lived in a domed earth, a flat earth. And that because the stars appear small, it means the stars are small. That the moon, because the moon appears small, it means the moon is small. And because the moon is small, it's impossible to enter the moon. Do not let people deceive you. Just because it's impossible for them does not mean it's impossible for you. Through God, all things are possible. And the Bible states that God will help those who help themselves. So if you never give up on yourself, God will help you. If you never give up on God, God will help you. You figure out a way. You will find a way. All it takes is a scientific approach to life. As long as you figure out how to create something scientifically, you can create it. That's what that's what science is here for. To help us figure out a way to make the impossible possible. We have the power to use science to make the impossible possible. To bring something that didn't exist into existence. We always have that power. This is why, Jesus Christ stated in the Bible that, don't you know that you're all God's? Everyone in this world is God. Everything in this world is God. God is omnipresent. God is the very world around us. It means that the power that we have within us is beyond our imagination. But we must first believe in ourselves. Only when you believe in yourself would you be able to make the impossible possible. Only when you believe in yourself can you turn something that's non-existence, something that's non-existent, into existence. You bring something to life that didn't exist before. But this can only happen if you first believe in yourself, if you never give up on yourself, and if you never give up on God. Believe in yourself and God will help you, because God is you. God is me, God is you, and God is everybody. And through God, all things are possible. The things people tell you are impossible will only ever be impossible for them, not you. So never give up on yourself. And the word existence and non-existence are just illusions. Illusions created by God. Only perspective determines what exists and what doesn't. And that's all. Perspective. What we think that it doesn't exist, right? Only doesn't exist from our perspective. From their own perspective, they are just as real as we are. Just because they don't exist in our world does not mean they can't exist. The very fact that we can think of them proves that they can exist. You can't think of something that can't exist. You just can't. The fact that your mind can think of it proves that it's a possibility in this world. It's a possibility in this world of duality. It may not be a possibility in our world, but who knows? Who knows, you first have to have the mindset of a scientist to figure out how to make something impossible possible. We'll use the scientific process to change the world and bring whatever imagination you have to life. And it's possible to bring whatever you might have in mind to life. The scientists do not have it all figured out. They tell you they do, but they don't. They have a lot figured out, but they don't have enough. And they probably never will. Why? Because this world is infinite. Because this world is infinite. The world of science will only, we go on infinitely and never truly figure out the whole piece. They will never truly figure out the whole piece because the world is infinite. So if you're waiting for science to tell you, that something's possible before you start doing it, before you start making, taking steps towards it, you may wait for the rest of your life. You may wait till infinity and still not get the answer. Start now and look for ways to make the impossible possible. Change your life and God will help you change it. You are, you have the power to change your life. You have the power to bring the non-existent things into existence. You do. But it can only happen if you believe in yourself. Once you believe in yourself, God will help you. But you must first believe in yourself. So that's it for today's podcast episode. I pray for everyone's safety and understanding. Amen.